Is Jason on the line? He's gonna call him.
Was it?
No, I talked to him and we're clear.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, good. Welcome everyone. We'll call our Public Works and Beautification meeting for April 27th to order. Declarations of conflict of interest. I don't see anybody's got any concerns. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Is there anything we want to change here? Okay.
Just
Or an
in
add?
reports, Scott, I was trying to get an update on Hawthorne Avenue. And as for Scott, as for Penny's Lane, I believe that Polly Grass or Dr. Grass couldn't make it in today, and another neighbor's out of town, so we might have to postpone it, but.
She was going to watch virtually.
Oh, was she?
Yeah. I instructed her how she can do that.
Okay, so
That's it, just
Sue.
Hawthorne, and he's gonna give us an update.
on both Penny Lane and Hawthorne. Okay, thank you very much. Approval of the agenda. I need a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Yankoff, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Everyone, nay, I see none. Adoption of the minutes, March 30th, 2022. I'll need a mover, or do you want a minutes, folks?
Oh, no, I already read that.
Yeah, okay. So moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Yankoff. Business all those in favor of the minutes, thank you very much. The business arising from previous minutes, if any? No? Jeez. I'm glad to hear that, because we do have a full agenda, and we'll just keep trucking. Thank you. Reports, the first one, 6A, capital projects, monthly update, Mr. Adams.
Certainly. So as in your 11 by 17 document there, really, there's been some changes as we're starting to move into the construction season now. So Garfield Street's now under construction. Harley Street will see construction mid to late next month. Beach Grove Road box culvert will be mid to late next month. You'll start seeing some work there with Beach Grove Road being closed for approximately, it's still early tell, but it's looking like approximately 6 to 8 weeks potentially, could be a little longer, once they remove that box culvert and so on like that. But we'll be working with the contractor once we have our kickoff meeting. We'll be able to fine tune that schedule and do our media blitz as well. And of course, we're always talking to EMS and police and fire as well. Any type of major work like this, we're trying to schedule a meeting next week to talk about Beach Grove Road and other major capital projects as well.
Okay.
And other big ones that we're looking at in terms of completion. One small change for Power's new building. The steel prefab building is a few weeks late potentially. We're still hoping, aiming to take ownership in December, but it could be slightly pushed by a couple weeks to January. Not a huge delay at the moment, but we're still working with them, hoping that they can speed up and crash that schedule.
Okay.
And that is the Ken's Corner upgrade. I believe we're starting in another week or two as well. That's the upgrade of signals and some small realignments to the existing approaches to the intersection.
Okay.
Other than that, pretty much straight as we've talked previously.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Before I open it up to questions, I just had one, and that was on the Eastern Gateway. So can you, I had a couple of residents calling, especially from the Park Street, Beach Street area about flooding, just where we are, and I think I seen something there, Scott. I'll get you to explain it as far as the water flow.
Yeah, so I guess maybe it might be it's best to wait till we get the resolution to explain.
Oh, okay, you want, okay.
Asking
right.
for the resolution. That will help it in terms of the park, and I'm glad you mentioned Park and Beach Street connector. We just got those drawings about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
So likely it shouldn't be too long of a turnaround to get that tender out.
Okay.
For flood posts and get that connector done
Okay,
as well.
cool. We'll wait for the resolution. Okay. Councilor Yang.
Yeah, just a point of order. The only issue with waiting for the resolution is that then we're all stuck with only allowed 2 questions. So what if you had more?
Yeah.
Since we've only got it, so I just want to kind of explain that.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the people of the area have been dealing with a lot of water problems. I mean, it is a lower area, and then as the water comes down from the university, it does flow through that back area there, so there is flooding, and Park Street area has been dealing with that for a lot of years, and we're kind of hoping that with the stormwater management for this phase of the project, that it's going to improve that area as well. And but we're at a stage where the first go around as far as what needs to be done, there's still a little bit of question as to where else is that water coming from. We want to make sure that we don't miss any other drainage that was coming, and all of a sudden, oh geez, we get the project done and we find it, half the water's not going where we thought it was, because it's a tricky area there. There's even on my street, there's some water comes down off a hill. You don't know where it's coming from. So it's important that we do this part and make sure that we know where make sure we're going to catch all the water we're supposed to catch, I guess would be the thing. So that's why I asked the question, and people have been waiting. And
that's essentially the grounds of the resolution, is, so the extent and the drainage area is significant.
Right.
And when we put the original RFP together, we didn't truly have good knowledge of how extensive that drainage area was and how many pipes and catch basins we into it. And so that is the next big phase, is to data collection. It depends on how detailed a model that we're trying to achieve, and we want a fairly robust, detailed model to accurately predict stormwater flows, how much we can handle with existing, and what we truly need to be able to handle, where we need to be able to handle it in the city, so that we do eliminate, or significantly reduce that risk of overland flooding that we see in this area that's happening almost every year now.
And I understand exactly, but I guess from a residential point of view, like, they've been told it's coming, it's going to be next year, it's going to be next year,
Right.
And all of a sudden now we're saying, well, we got to go back to the drawing board.
No.
So it's,
we're still on track for, our goal is to stay on schedule and marry up with the province next year.
Okay.
That's always been our intention.
That's the goal.
And that's why we're bringing forward a resolution to increase the cost of that consulting work. Because the concern is if we have to go out and secure another consultant, it could be, we're it's so many weeks to put the tender together, tender it,
they've already
award it, and then we're in the middle of construction season. How much capacity do these consultants have?
They already have their feet dipped into it.
Absolutely. And then the model has to be built. Then the model would have to be handed back over to our consultant, get their head wrapped around all the information. And then, so yes, my concern is if we, again, we got to collect the data in a relatively short period of time. And if our consultant can collect the data while building the model concurrently and reviewing the data concurrently, it can crash the schedule and ensures that we stay on schedule for this project to be finished by the end of the next construction season.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adams. Any more questions for Scott on capital projects monthly update? Mr. Brown, sir.
Mr. Adams,
Certainly.
I think you mentioned that the PW, or the Macular Accessory Building.
Yes.
A little delay in the pre-engineered bed steel.
Yeah.
Did you say 6 weeks?
The last I heard, up to 4 weeks was the last I heard. It could be 2 to 4, but that was the last that I recall from my project manager.
And the estimated cost, 6.5 million, you're still staying with it?
Yes, we are still staying with that budget at this moment. There hasn't been anything that we foresee that would constitute any crazy change order.
The reason I ask, because under fire station number 3 to 5.2, there's a little concern that, that might be too low. Have you heard that?
It's potential, but I think at the time, we had hoped to have the funding in place as well from the federal government to make up the difference.
From your understanding, that hasn't been applied to?
I would have to check on that one. We engaged the help of Ramona and her team from Iowa. Has always helped us apply for those grants.
Right.
And he's been successful so far, so he's very knowledgeable on the application process that needs to go through. And there's also information that has to be provided by a design consultant that we need to go with the application. I think we can submit initially the application, but it doesn't get reviewed until, there's electrical drawings and depends on the type of heating system, all that type of stuff. All that information has to also be provided.
Because it was sold as a net zero building.
Correct, yeah.
And just one last
Yeah,
question.
sure.
On the box culvert, Beach Grove Road, was asked the other night that the first tender that we put out last year was ICS, and I asked Wallace, was there a bid, I think, at 3.4 million last year?
So in
21.
2021, ICS bid was approximately 100 and just shy of $170,000 higher than our current bid. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Good, thank you. So just kind of going back to the fire hall, so can we review that again? Just, I missed that.
Certainly.
So-
Part of the process is to make a funding application to federal government, which we've already are going through with the Immaculate Accessory Building for funding. So there's usually two components. One is a low interest loan for the building itself or for the construction of the building. And then there is a percentage that they give you as a funding allotment for usually the energy performance upgrades or the energy increase upgrades. And that's the funding, those are the two streams of funding that we're applying for the fire hall.
Okay, and did you have your hand up, Council?
Sort of, and maybe it's unrelated to this committee, but I think it's probably important to ask so that we're just not working in silos. The fire station number 3, I know that we've secured a location, but from my understanding, there's been some other talk in other committee that maybe that location wasn't the ideal location, and I'm just wondering, in terms of transparency, if there is any more conversation on that, or if it's been confirmed that that is the right location.
Nothing has been brought to
Mr. Chair, that we were reviewing the project at the last meeting of protective services. There's going to be another meeting tomorrow, next Thursday, to further review the information, and then should it need to go to council, it will, and we'll be able to provide an update after that meeting.
Okay, cool. Okay.
And just one different,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, is that all committee meetings, standing committee meetings are open to councillors. You may not have a voice
Right.
at the meeting, but I'm sure that if you want to go, you should
Go on, you.
reach out to Jill Stewart. She's the administrator for the committee.
Right.
But it's next Thursday at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
At noon.
What's that?
At noon.
It was changed to noon. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Good information to know.
Yeah, it's just good to stay out of silence.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you very much for asking the question. West Royalty Master Traffic Plan, Mr. Adams, you're a busy fellow today.
So we were hoping to have the booklets here today. They unfortunately weren't done until this afternoon. So since as a follow-up from the last public meeting, we did listen to concerns of residents, and the goal with this plan was to control and manage traffic. The parks and that side of things would have to come from a Parks and Rec plan. It was, again, really, we were trying to figure out how can we safely get access to these vacant lands where we know we have a number of developers ready to start developing their lands, and how we were going to manage those traffic flows around the area. There was also concerns about the lack of talk about active transportation. As part of, again, it was, we can make reference to it in the document, but our thought was always, and our plan was always that we would have a Spencer Drive extension, for instance, an AT pathway would be run parallel to it within the footprint of the public right of way, and connecting to the to the trail system. So those are already plans in place to do that. And then the other big item that was discussed was the concern about traffic cutting through Sherwood neighborhood from this development. or from the extension of Spencer Drive. And so we looked at the models a few times, we ran a few simulations, and there's nothing truly, unless there's some outlier that no one's thinking of, there's no true reason for folks to cut through Sherwood. There's nothing from point A to point B really that they would be cutting through. That's not to say they may not. And so what we did was we looked at an option of an intersection treatment for that, and it is included in the plan. If we want to go that route for an intersection treatment at Spencer, that would restrict movement, traffic movements. This would be a short one.
Yeah, so I'll just, I think, the residents were certainly concerned. I think we definitely got to listen to them, and I think, the idea that I've seen basically on paper, you're going to show now, I think would, we can always assume that they're only going to go left or right, but if traffic jams get, and there is that access of going through the Sherwood community, then they'll go. So if we can prevent that, then I think, that'd be a good step going forward to listening to the residents. Yeah.
So here's what we're proposing for this intersection treatment. And just keep in mind, this is not a construction drawing, so
Right.
it's not showing all the, all the features in the road to prevent people from making certain turns
Right.
that we're preventing. So this is Spencer Drive extension. This is heading north on Mount Edward Road.
Right.
The bypass is up here. And this is Ash Drive. So folks on Mount Edward Road heading northbound would have full movement. They would still have a right into Ash. They would have through to the bypass and a left turn lane, a dedicated left turn lane into the Spencer Drive area. Folks coming from the bypass, they would only be able to do a through movement and a right movement on Spencer.
So they can't access Ash.
No, and what we're going to do here, so Ash, as you can see, it's set up as all three movements, right, left, and through. But on the inbound lane, we will essentially, you install a concrete island here, which essentially has a slip lane and for a right movement. So this is an easy maneuver for vehicles. From this direction, there is no way, like you would be doing a big U-turn to try to get into it. No one's really going to try that. I don't know why you would attempt to do that. It would be a very awkward movement. And there would be individual traffic around that would likely prevent you from ever trying to make that movement.
Okay.
So that is the goal for this treatment,
Right.
for this intersection. And so folks would still have good access down here, right across from Towers Road. And then I forget the other side street up there as well. But they would have still two good access, a full movement to get into Sherwood from those two areas as well.
So you could never go straight
Nope.
from
That's correct.
Towers Road, and you can only go in
Yeah,
this way.
correct.
Coming north.
Correct. And
Yeah.
so this still works really well for fire. Fire would be coming,
Yeah, that was my next
likely
question.
coming
Yeah.
up from this direction if they were.
They still can access it in case of a fire.
Yeah.
But
Or,
generally
again,
over-
emergency services can access any of these roads from
Yeah.
Sherwood from the two previous roads
Right.
that they would pass. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's in the report for this treatment for this intersection, which we do hope it would satisfy the resident. Again, as you can see here, this black strip is showing a multi-use pathway
active.
along it. So it does, again, the main focus of this project was not at transportation, it was how to manage that road network or how to manage the traffic, which in turn means we will put dedicated AT pathways parallel to those roadways for those folks.
Yeah, because eventually, people would want to go to, or if you're coming from Capitol Drive,
Absolutely, yeah.
you'd want, coming through the mall, the Canadian
Right.
Tire, you'd have
Well,
that access.
and what we're hearing from developers in this is going to be like apartments and condos, I guess, like high density buildings in here. So that's a lot of foot traffic. A lot of people, if they live within a 5-minute walking distance of a mall, they may choose to walk to the mall.
Right.
Or
If there's a
the car or
transportation lane or whatever, yeah.
or even the theater, right? So we want to give them a good access,
Yep.
or good safe access to get
Okay.
to those
Okay.
those places that are trying
Okay.
to go to.
So unfortunately for today, we don't have that master traffic
So we
plan.
don't have the printed document,
Okay.
but we will circulate that. Hopefully, at the end of the day, we'll drop it out in everyone's mailboxes.
Okay,
And so the goal is, I guess, if you guys aren't comfortable doing it now, we can wait till the next meeting. And essentially, we just need a motion from this committee to move it on to planning.
Yes.
And then planning will take it through their process
Yeah.
to adopting it into
And-
a bylaw.
will this be put in council, like all the councilors' boxes are gonna
Yes,
get a copy?
every council, there is
So
a
the
copy. for all
councils of the
councils.
area can have it, so they can
Everyone
talk to
will have a
residents?
hard copy, and if anyone would like a digital copy, we will
Right.
provide it. We'll also work with comms to get a digital copy
Perfect.
on the website and do a
Perfect.
bit of a media blitz on that to say it is available for residents to download. And then planning again, will take it over from that
Right.
point on and go through their processes for public meetings and all that stuff as well.
Perfect. Any other questions for Mr. Adams?
Proposed date, what are you looking at? 2023, 2024?
So that is that's one thing we do need to start thinking about and working with the developer community. Because there is definitely one developer in there, and they're kind of our landlocked right now in terms of getting access to their property.
Is that on the north side or the south side?
It's on the north side of the road. So the goal is to avoid any driveways out of Manor Road, because that's the ultimate goal of it.
Right.
We want to control access, right? We want to put traffic on roads that are designed to handle traffic flows, not a driveway. Manor Road's busy enough, we don't need to be causing more issues for that. So that is a discussion. We've had some preliminary discussions with developers on how we start achieving this road network to gain access to a couple lots that are a bit landlocked. So we are ongoing, and I hope to have a plan, a proposal within, I'm hoping next meeting on how we can do this, and hopefully potentially start some of these streets potentially next year, so that these folks can build and gain occupancy for their buildings.
Okay.
I just have a.
Yes, Councilor?
Is it a bit premature for us to, as a committee, to recommend that we move this on to planning before we've seen the final draft? Like, I'm just trying.
And we could wait if you guys want to wait one more meeting until we get this.
Oh, maybe a bad idea.
Definitely make
And I
that.
know we're all gonna see it eventually, I'm just thinking, we're so pushing.
Yeah, you got a point there.
About
Yeah.
the process, I mean,
Yeah.
because we're recommending something to go somewhere based on something we haven't seen.
Good point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I'm not comfortable doing that.
So,
Okay.
I just asked a supplementary question on this.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Adams, I know you weren't around here when they built the bypass, but the bypass was a big gully. There's a lot of fill that happened when here, shale. So who will bear the cost? The city, or are we looking at a cost sharing with?
That's the model that we're looking at. is
Cost share.
Correct. Again, we want to have more discussions with the developers on what our expectations are, and get an agreement in place in principle with them before bringing that to committee and council for final approval. But that's, it would be, our goal at the end of the day is, this is needed for the developer community and not necessarily for the city of Charlottesville. So we do think that they should bear the brunt of the cost of this project, and so that's what we'll be looking at as we work through.
Yeah, so,
discussions with them.
Getting back to Councilor Yankov's question, I think, yeah, let's send it to planning first.
Well, it has to go to planning regardless.
Yeah,
to adopt the bylaw.
but instead of having it out and then
yeah.
changes made, we might as well wait and make sure planning is good with it before we.
Essentially, right now, how the bylaw is written, or how the streets, any developer, if they want to come through here, they would have to build their roads on their own property anyway.
Right,
We also recognize that this helps existing traffic problems that the city has on University Avenue, down the road, and in and around this area that we also need to fix. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. But yes, again, those are discussions we're having with developers, and we'll definitely bring back a plan and make a recommendation to
Yeah.
council at that
Yeah.
point.
So, and just so it's clear in my head and for anyone that's listening, so when we say we're talking to the developer, but we're going to the developer with the residential concerns as well, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to see a separation here of, you know, wait a minute, they're paying more attention to the developers than they are the resident.
No.
You know, I want to make sure that when we're having discussions, both are being considered, right?
And the
Yeah.
developer community realizes that's why we've been holding off reviewing their plans, was
Okay.
because we want a plan in place that is acceptable to the
Both,
community and
everybody.
residents, to
Right.
the city, and also meets the needs of the developing community to access their
Good.
properties. So we're very appreciative of the
Yeah.
developers in the area. They have
Yeah.
been very good
Patient,
and
yeah.
patient with us.
Yeah.
And so that's why they've been very good to work with. So that's
Good.
why we want to make sure it's a
Taking our time.
plan going forward. Yeah.
Okay, good. Mackenzie, Yanko, one more?
So, yeah, sure, thank you. So once Public Works brings back the final draft of the traffic plan, then we will send it on to, are we sending it on to planning board or planning committee?
I would assume planning board.
Okay, and so while it's at planning board, I'm imagining that the planning board will probably have a lot of questions. And my concerns will be that Alex maybe will say, that's a public works question, and then we're kind of stale. Like, could we ask that maybe the manager of public works is available for the planning board meeting?
That's
Yeah.
already in the plans.
Yeah, that's probably a good point,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that is already in the plans.
Okay.
Any meetings that are, where this is on the agenda, whether it's the public meeting, whether it's
Moving
the
forward
planning
once-
board.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, it doesn't make sense for me not to be there, because
No.
there will be traffic related
Right.
or
That makes
design
a lot
related
of sense.
questions. And it just doesn't make sense
Yeah,
to
let's
not
make
be in
sense.
attendance.
Stay out of the silo thing, yeah, no, that's good, yeah.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes,
ask a
oh,
question.
one more for the mayor.
So I think that Scott, or the manager would know that the road that's going on, now River Road that connects Burn Garden with a new development on the north side,
Yeah,
I think that cost was borne by the developer.
Right.
Correct. And if I go back to the plan that was presented at the Confederation Center
Mhm.
on the West Road traffic plan,
Yeah,
all the roads going through these proposed multi-unit apartment developments
would be all,
cost.
would be privately
So
paid for.
that's
right?
why, Mr. Adams, I go back to this,
Yeah.
this is a public road. That's why I think, you know, you're gonna get developers on side to say, yeah, we want it, but you build it, because it's your public road. Anything that connects to it, we'll take care of it.
Right.
Your Worship, under section 200 of the MJ, clearly states that the council can recapture those costs to the developer
Right.
and the others, and if you don't, you are shortchanging the taxpayers.
Sure you are, but
Yeah.
Again, what they should pay for.
Developers should be aware before this whole plan starts
Yeah.
to evolve.
And that's why we're including.
Make reference to what Mr. Kelly made reference to,
Yeah.
the Municipal
Right.
Government Act, where there's a
As,
responsibility on their part
yeah.
to share the cost.
Yeah, and that's why we've been talking about the individuals who
Yeah,
are
good point.
north of here, who are landlocked, who need the access to this road. That's why we've been talking with them, and they are aware, they were aware, they were at the meeting, as far as I know. We've had some discussions with.
So they're aware that they have to cover some of these costs, it's not a free ride.
They are aware of that as well. We just need to sit down and work with them to, they are aware that, we're coming to the table, we have the land now, we purchased the remaining piece of land to get access to Manor River Road. So all these pieces are part of the discussion with the developers as we go forward.
And
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
again, if you look at this, this Spencer is an extension of Capitol Drive. Everything north of Capitol Drive is in another fire district. As we were talking about
Right.
yesterday, the explosion of development that's taking place in this area of the city is the future.
Yeah.
And I think at some point, the province will have to look at going beyond our current border, Stockman Drive, to, Highway 2, because we're running out of room,
Yeah.
but that's where the development is taking place.
Yeah.
That's the future.
Yeah.
That's not 10 years.
No.
That's 20, 30,
Yeah.
40. So we've got a lot of
Yeah.
development, a lot of property over here to develop.
Right.
Good property.
Yeah.
That's
And-
where
and-
Oscar comes in, Oscar Allen.
Yeah.
Really knows land
Yeah.
Oscar does.
Oscar, and the boys. as you're going out Mount Airy Road, Stockton's on your right.
That's where you had dump left. Yes, he's on the east, west side.
It's quite a piece
Yeah.
of property.
Yeah, so like,
Yep, no, it's good, point
Future
well
looks
taken.
bright.
It's communications is the key to this one, I think, we gotta make sure that all parties involved, and the government should be, the provincial government should be somewhat inclined to be part of these conversations as well. I think there's a little bit of shariness there too. So, okay, so I think we got West Road taken care of. Fitzroy Parkade Facade.
Yes, so thank you. So, this is just for information.
Looks nice. Whoever gets it.
Purpose. So this was the plan that was approved by Heritage Board or Planning Board?
design review.
Design review.
2 years.
I always forget.
Drafted 2 years ago.
So this,
I think it caught in COVID.
it did, yeah, so
Right,
this is the plan that was
Can
approved.
you drop that, please? They can't see it.
Oh, what's going on here? It will disappear here shortly.
Escape.
Just get an eraser. Get some white out. There we go, there we go.
So that was the plan that was approved from design review pre-COVID. The tender documents are ready, they're up in finance, being reviewed for tendering.
Okay, so, somewhere, in one of our meetings, we had discussed about public
Regular
art.
monthly meeting.
Public art.
This is it.
This is it.
So, that's what we're
In this
suggesting?
place, it's a facade to, it's the design review, and they wish to add this glass and the feature as a part of the architectural rendering, but
Right.
a part of public art as well.
Okay,
Does this fall under our public art policy?
So the cost, it was built before, but it cost, what was the 2.8 million, I think the extension cost, so if that's the case, it'd be $20,000. This is $400,000, so.
But was an artist, did an artist do this? These renderings? Or these,
Architectural firm.
It's,
Architectural firms, I presume, and I was involved. It was not through art review, sorry, the design review.
I
right.
think
Right.
Robert Matthews at Ottawa.
But our
right.
public art policy says it needs to go through the public art, or through our Arts Advisory Board.
For
So,
design review, I don't think design review does.
no, design review doesn't, but if we were following that public art policy, and if the 1% does,
Oh, are you
Factor
talking
into
the
this.
1%?
yeah, the 1%.
Yeah, if this would fall into it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can't count the architectural work as public art. That does not read how that policy
No.
reads.
So this comes in at 100,000, you take
Yes.
1% of that.
This is for 100,000.
No, but I'm just, for simple,
She's also referring to the cost of the expansion, which is trying to factor as well, which is $28,000.
the 2.8 million, that's a good point. You may have to take the 1% and add that to it.
I'm just flagging
No,
it.
that's good,
I'm just
Well,
flagging
the
it because
question,
we've
yeah.
not following that policy.
because it is a public space that we can use. If it was a fire station or a police station, it's not a public access building.
And the artwork could be done outside of this, in part of the tree and work in the lower end, it could be built into that feature.
So, is there any, like, we don't have anything that says parkade, or doesn't say what it is?
But the policy said.
It is on the, I know the front
Yeah,
is on the
'cause
other
it's not a
side.
driving access, so you
I know,
don't
but-
confuse your drivers that think that they
Yeah.
can get in and access off this. No. This is just the back end of it.
I know. I just, it's such a main street, it's, it's very tourism generated. I just, you have the, and I just hope there is some opportunity that local artists could work with this building.
Well, I think the case is, I don't think it's, we hope, we have to follow policy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, as long as we know that that's built in there, that there is that opportunity that we
So
could.
just a point
Yeah.
of clarification, Mr. Chair, I believe what the councillor, Yankoff is saying from Ward 1,
Right,
that the addition to the Fitzroy Parkade was 2.8 million.
right.
If you look at our arts, the art advisory
The
policy,
policy.
if it's a municipal public building, we have to provide
Oh,
1% that goes into a public art fund.
Right.
Now, will that public art go onto that building? Maybe not. It could go on to some other building. that right there is
Okay.
a design that was forwarded
Okay.
to enhance the streetscape of Kent Street, which is pretty bleak.
I mean, it's beautiful, I don't have a problem with it, it's just.
So therefore, therefore, does this then not, this building at some point need to go on as to the committee that Arts Advisory Board is under, for it to go to Arts Advisory, for them to do a call for submission for a piece of public art, that somehow they create a criteria, goes out for a call, it's like peer reviewed, like the way you do art call, like we've not really ever done this before, but that's what our policy says.
So this goes to tenure. When it comes back, then it could be added a subline of 20,000 to put into reserve pending that process. So in other words, we can reserve the money and allow that process to
Yeah.
take its course, but because of the cost, this is the final piece of the expansion, then take the 1% and then put into that reserve.
So
That's
it-
the second section of this motion that goes back to
Right,
council.
so it's not written in stone that this building has to have public art on it
Yes,
from
it
the
is.
arts, but the
Yes.
money is given to the public art.
No, it's written that it has to be reflective on each of the public buildings.
But it doesn't have to go right there, it could go somewhere else.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying.
It goes into the fund.
It goes into the fund, now the the arts board might have that opportunity to say, no, we'll take them, yeah, thanks for the money, but we would sooner do a piece of art
Yeah.
somewhere down the street.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's how I read the policy.
Right.
Plus, I spoke to Kim Devine, who was on council at the time, to put together the policy. It's to create a fund, a bank account,
Right.
so that when the Arts Advisory Committee looks at projects, they have access to
To some
money,
funding.
funds.
That makes sense, right.
Whether it's this building or
Right.
anything throughout the city.
Mural,
And it's
down-
not just necessarily downtown. Art can be, could
It's-
should be placed
policy
anywhere in
is
the
all
city.
over the greater Charlottetown area, yeah.
And just a heads up for the committee, I have talked to Laurel and Doug on art, and it's not in terms of this piece, but they are kind of related. With the roundabout construction, we have a large center bulb of the roundabout. And I kind of got the idea from another roundabout that just recently won an award for the nicest looking.
Oh, the
roundabout.
arts, the piece.
The nice looking roundabout in the world, it was in Fredericton actually, they won an award because they had a large, beautiful art installment in the middle of it.
Right.
And then Doug also did some research, found some research, some saying that public art in the center of a roundabout actually reduces traffic accidents by 37%. They found there reduced
Wow.
traffic or accidents.
Well, let's see how
I
that-
haven't been able to dive into the information yet to find out more about why and such, but some of the theories I think is, people are driving slower because they're interested in it versus speeding right through.
Yeah.
So I have approached them about looking at something like that. They thought it was a great idea in terms of at least doing a couple proposals and seeing what
Okay.
kind of ideas we could do for something like that. And one of the ideas in the beginning is something that reflects the two neighborhoods that intersect, both Parkdale and Sherwood. Something that represents these two former communities, now
Yeah, it
neighborhoods.
could be a
of
good,
Charlottetown. Some type of union or joining of some sort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have left that in the hands of Doug and Oracle now to do.
And they
a
can
call.
go through the
They're gonna
process.
do a look, they have brought it to the Arts Advisory, I think they were excited about it.
Okay.
And so I think they're putting that call document together now to see what interest there is out there in our community and what kind of ideas we can drum up for in our installation with it. It's a great time to start talking about it, because as we construct it, if it needs a base or something like that, we can install the base as the roundabout is constructed,
Done.
and then the RP installation can be installed after.
It's not an afterthought,
Yeah.
it's something that's been created.
Exactly. We can add electrical,
Okay.
we need to add some lighting or uplighting or something like that, so there's some things we can do to save a lot of costs as we are doing it,
So that's all the more reason to build up that reserve fund, because the money for any of these other projects should come from this reserve.
Yeah,
fund.
municipal buildings, yeah.
And it says, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
section 4 of that policy,
Yeah.
council will allocate at least 1% of the cost of the appropriate city capital projects to the creation and installation of public art as part of such municipal projects.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
So it does mean it has to go to this way, it can go to anything that.
So that means then the Victoria Park shoreline improvements, that's gonna be enjoyed by all the city. That project not fall under?
I don't know if that's infrastructure now, is it?
It is.
It is, okay, yeah, there you go. Okay,
Just so we can have the minutes reflect these things, so that we don't come back in a few years' time. and we'll-
he's got it under control over there, all this. Okay, any other questions for that, or are we good? We're good. Okay. Street resurfacing program.
So you'll see in your package, there's a note here, the number of streets that we have identified for street resurfacing for this upcoming season, which we hope to tender either late this week or early next week.
Is that resolution number 1?
It's not a resolution, no. The resolution
Oh, it's
comes forward
information
till
only,
the
I'm sorry.
subject is closed.
You read the information.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay,
And note, the last two will not be on the street reconstruction, or street resurfacing tender when it does come out, but it's because both those streets are being fully resurfaced under separate contracts.
all right, okay. Okay, I'm good. Any questions for Scott?
What's the next step on this? Is this just an information piece?
That's correct.
It's declaration.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. All good? Okay. We're going to ask Doug to come in on the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Garden dedication. He has a small presentation. Doug DeMay, Wallace can get him. He's probably in his office. So, Scott, did you want to touch base on this while he's waiting, just to kind of?
Yeah, I can kind of give a little background
Yeah.
here. I think most people are aware of this the requests we've received from the Friends of the Farm group on who maintain the crown jewel flower bed on federal land. So since our discussions last year, I've reached out to the caretaker of the property, and from what I understood, they did give them access to water at a previous time, but what had happened was individuals were running the water and not turning it off. And it wasn't necessarily the volunteers, it was, someone who maybe
Just
was
anybody.
homeless or
Yeah.
something like that, someone just getting water for a water bottle and not turning it off. So they were very concerned about that, so that's why they shut off water. So then I proposed, what if either, someone came up with a design that worked with the design of the building that's there.
Yeah.
It went up against the building, secure, still allowed the water spigot to come through the back from the house, lockable, and you can store a hose in there and a water gun, and it's connected to the water, so that, and the only people that have the key are the volunteers who are watering the garden.
Right.
And he said, as long as there's no cost to the federal government, other than they would still
water.
hook up to the water, they said
Yeah.
they would do that. They had no issue with that at all. They liked having a flower bed. That would be okay. They just don't have the resources to put to a design or anything of that
Right.
nature. It would have to be solely volunteer-led or city was aid, which we have been trying to come up with a design and a
Right.
feature to make it work.
So it would be safe to say, the groundwork was done to the Public Works Department,
Correct.
and then we moved it on to Doug in the mayor's office, I believe, and Doug, you're here to give a presentation on your behalf.
Yeah, just a quick update, so thanks for that, Scott, that you to share. So this year is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, 70 years of service to Commonwealth. So as part of those celebrations, there are things happening across the world, but especially around Prince Edward Island. So to add to those celebrations, we thought it would be good to partner with the Friends of the Farm, who manage that small plot of land where flowers are planted every year, an organization that's committed to the beautification of the city, to partner and just dedicate that garden for this year to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So they've been planting it every year. However, in the past, as it's been raised, there's been issues with watering that plot. So the Office of the Mayor provides a small grant to buy flowers every year and they plant them. That's been the case for quite a few years, as I understand. So this solution that's been put forward by Public Works is based on the assumption that the volunteers would be able to go and water that plot 2 times a week. In recent conversations with the Friends of the Farm, it seems that might not have been communicated clearly. They're not 100% sure to what capacity they'll be able to provide their own volunteers to go and water that plot. So I think there's two potential solutions here. One thing that they did raise was that they were looking into increasing the grant from the Office of the Mayor that was essentially the request that was submitted to pay for someone to come and water that plot, which would come out to just about $1,600 annually. So the first solution that's provided is obviously this trunk that would be created by the Public Works Department, and they would water with their own volunteers, or perhaps hire someone to come in and do that twice a week. Alternatively, just because of the context of this Platinum Jubilee, I'm thinking that another potential solution, despite the fact that I'm very aware that there is a policy here, one solution that has been suggested would be to create an exception for 1 year, for one season of the Public Works Department to water that plot. And going forward, so the mayor could be budgeting that additional cost to be included in there. So that's one suggestion, and I welcome discussion, welcome any questions that I can address to that.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I don't want to knock this, but I have to say this. I can't get over the fact that someone would say that on the experimental farm property that they will cooperate bearing in mind this is the Queen's Jubilee,
right.
Our Queen, our monarch. And this person said, as long as there's no cost to the federal government. What a statement of support for the Queen. I can't get over. And an agricultural experimental firm of all places, and they don't want any cost to the federal government. Well, I'm glad as a councillor here that we will ensure there's no cost to the federal government.
So, did you have a question, Councilman? Oh, you got a phone to answer too. I'll go ahead if you want. So anyway.
That's the Queen saying she agrees with Duff.
That was the Queen calling.
Yeah, if Steve wanted to know where his lunch
She's
is.
saying mine. My question was, one of Doug's suggestions was going against the city policy for a year and as an exception. So would we have to open that policy up and make a change, a temporary amendment to it for a year? If we were to do it that way in a public works, like how do you, and making an exception and obviously, wanting to get these things watered, does this open up Pandora's box to other community initiatives that require the same help?
As chair, I would strongly recommend against doing that. We've been trying to, we've been keeping on a pretty good course of we're staying off public property. And I think you're right, we're going to open up a can of worms that we don't want to open. The policy was put in place just for this reason, was, everyone thinks they're special, right? And it doesn't matter what we think here today, but tomorrow there's going to be someone that says, well, hey, I think I should be getting it too.
Well, I just
right?
liability.
I do think Councillor Duffy might have hit the nail on the head. Has Sean Casey been involved in any of these conversations?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Maybe the federal government's contribute. Well, have we asked?
Yeah, I've asked.
So the first option was that we increase the grant from the mayor's office to an additional $1,600. Is there, and that would cover an expense for them to hire somebody to come in and water? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Or is that this just them using city water? Where is that?
So if I may answer that, Mr. Chair. So Councilor Yankoff, thank you for your question. I would say that the option that's presented in the staff report is to pursue the Public Works direction of the Public Works Department, the city, the Office of the Mayor, cost sharing the creation of this trunk. And that would provide a tool for someone to come and water that garden, be it a volunteer or someone that's hired a landscaper. This $1,600 quote was the original ask that was submitted, which would cover the cost of the company's name is Ford Mobile Washing, who would come with their water truck to water that for $1,600. So that's the only number we have. That's one solution. The alternative solution would be to, as I mentioned, the second one that was offered with the trunk and your volunteer or additional landscaper coming to water that.
And do you
So-
say truck or trunk?
A trunk,
So it's
the
like-
metal trunk that would be installed at the Ravenwood
And it would
house.
have water in it?
There's
So-
already water hookup that's already been, I believe, approved that it
Yes.
can be used for the watering of this garden.
It's literally just a trunk. It goes over, like the spigot will come in through the back of the trunk. So it's only accessible when you open it up, with your hose. It just stores all your hose and everything in there. They can just wheel it out, drag it out, go water your flower bed. And then,
And that would have a lock on it?
yes, yeah, in our car.
So, am I clear to say that there isn't a volunteer base that wants to do this?
There is a volunteer base. It's just been communicated to me that, as far as I understand, the conversations that have been had with Public Works that I wasn't necessarily privy to, that it seems from the understanding of the Public Works Department, they were willing to water it on their own schedule, but I'm not sure if that conversation was
Well-
had.
Well, that's where, for me, that's where I will understood was that we, Public Works, are going to install, and we did the groundwork of going to the federal government to say to the people that own the house that, you know, if we can guarantee that they don't leave the water on by putting in a security box, something like we do with baseball diamonds with bases, you know, and then the volunteer comes along or whoever it is and they open up and they use them, and it's their responsibility to put it back. And then all of a sudden now I'm getting like, now it's a double dip. They also want us to pay for the water or for someone else to do the work. So I'm kind of a little confused as to how we got to this point. Because the money isn't always going to be there. Even if we did decide to do it this year, at some point, you know, I mean, it's, you know, and are we just watering the garden or are the,
Just the garden.
Just like
so the farm center folks are not going to be wanting to use that same water to water there?
No. Yeah, and we would have their key, which would be only one copy of the key would be provided to Friends of the Farm. And it's a tamper-proof box, as Scott mentioned, so
Right.
there shouldn't be any issue with that. So, but I understand your concern.
Yeah, Councilor.
And it seems like such a tiny thing to be talking about, but in the same sense, it could turn into such a big thing because if we offer this to these gardens, there are other community initiatives and things that are out there making the city look beautiful
Yeah.
and doing it on their own. So where do we kind of ensure that if people are treated fairly,
Mhm.
or if what happens, we have this trunk and we pay for this water and the volunteer leaves the water on and all of a sudden the water runs for 4 days and like, I mean, if I run the water too long in my own personal home, I get a pretty big
Yeah, well,
bill.
that's-
And I'm just wondering if there is a fair solution, because what Doug is presenting makes very much sense. I mean, it would be beautiful to have these gardens watered. I just worried about, you know,
Well, the problem was they didn't have the $1,600. That's why, to do the watering, they,
the
to get
federal
Forge
government-
Mobile to come in and
federal
water for
government
them.
does- So the federal government doesn't have
It's under Canada Lands.
Yeah.
It's what?
The property falls under Canada Lands. It's an agency of the federal government.
Oh, I see, so Canada Lands
Yeah, so they.
doesn't have $1,600.
But A Canada is still using the property. But could I just say, Mr. Chair, we do have a similar situation at Desiree St. Park.
Right.
In the garden. The volunteers, the neighbors that live in that neighborhood,
They do the work.
rallied together.
Yep.
Did get money from the city under the water and sewer utility. Built a shed,
Yep.
installed a water connection. Volunteers have the keys to use it.
Yep.
And I think what Mr. Adams is suggesting, let's go with that proposal.
That's what I thought we were.
And I think that's a first offer where they will be responsible for maintaining the gardens, especially the maintenance and care. But I can say, Mr. Chair, that we do water on Victoria Road, and that is private property. And I fully endorse that. We want to keep our city looking beautiful. We do the flowers and take care of that floral arrangement that's in front of Welcome to Charlottetown side. That is property owned by CADC, but we're using, correct? It's not our property.
It's under CADC, I believe.
But we do that because you know what? It's all about keeping our city beautiful. I fully support it. And I think the Friends of the Farm are very much they're very focused on keeping our city beautiful. Namely, and it's only one site, it's Councillor Duffy said, it's federal land. Canada lands, Canada, still federal land. That's what it goes down. So I'm agreeing with Doug. He said provide the, you know, the work to get that system in place, like we did in Desperate Park. That's
Yes, per se is a city park.
It's city property. We had
So
to buy
that's
it.
very different than going on to
Federal
someone
land.
else's property.
Yeah.
Des per se is our own property. I'm actually perplexed, sorry, we had to actually install something in the city, couldn't go on.
Because we're trying to be a good neighbor.
We're trying to encourage neighbors to use it for
Oh,
a community
lovely,
garden.
okay.
We're trying to be into
And
beautification
it's
of the
just to
city.
get to your point of leaving the water on.
Mhm.
They have it, their group, I don't think, have ever left the water on. I think.
Yeah, it's just kids or someone,
But if
yeah.
it's under a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
rocks.
oh yeah, it wasn't the
that is
group itself,
But
no.
if Desiree Crest knows, it's a garden, it's a food garden.
Folder.
You know, it's for food, like, you know.
Community garden.
That's the purpose, it's not a, what do you call the opposite of a food garden?
Floral.
Floral garden, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. You should commend it.
So-
And that's what it is, like, you know, for income challenge people to go and just take the
Oh, that's
income.
lovely.
It's a great
And I
project.
think our water people have put a shed out there.
There's a
right?
Well, there's a
And
shed.
everything,
And
yeah.
they also picked up money from the Robert Cotton Fund.
Oh, yeah, they would. yeah.
So
And
they
the
also,
Brofman Foundation.
Right.
So it's very.
and something else, they also have a solar panel on the roof which powers the battery that pumps the water.
Yeah,
There you go. But I think
So-
you guys did something.
Yeah, so it's a great project, yeah, yeah. So, getting back, so what we're kind of saying here today is, we want to do the box, we want to put the security part of it together, but we're not saying yes to someone coming in and watering them, they got to water themselves. Is that what we're
We'll
saying?
have that discussion.
Mr. Chair, I would support this project this year on a one-off basis with the proviso that Public Works and Parks have a little committee to plan for next year, not at the 11th hour. I know Doug is not,
Well-
Doug talked to me about this in 3 weeks.
Yes, but this has been ongoing for a few years, so.
Yeah. So, but you know, I kind of gag a little bit, like it's right down to the municipal level, but we're talking about recognizing the Queen, like.
Yeah, it's federal.
Where is the federal government on this, and where's the province on this? And maybe where's the IODE on this? You know, they're quite involved.
They'll be there for the celebration.
Right? Anyway,
And so
we're gonna run short of time, I think.
Yeah, we gotta go.
10 after 7, 10 after 1.
Yeah.
Did somebody say that MP Sean Casey had been?
No, well,
I've spoken to him. It's-
So you spoke to him about this project?
It's a federal property, but that gets into the bureaucracy.
well, would it be open?
At the local level, at the local level, you know, we're more in the trenches, but when you get in higher orders of government, to get into a water and a garden as an MP,
Well, he's dealing with passports,
yeah, that's different.
yeah, but still the individual.
So what you need from us here is a recommendation to move it on to council? Is that the idea?
If that's how this
Right.
has to proceed, yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess we need a motion, yeah.
To move it on to council?
Well, but what is, so the motion is saying to install the box, give out the keys,
Do what has to be done on a one-off basis.
but what about the watering?
Yeah,
So it's a recommendation here, Mr. Chair,
right there.
It is written, is it?
that the Public Works and Beautification Committee considers the request to cost share the construction of the metal trunk
Right,
for Riverwood Drive at 50/50 with the Office of the Mayor. And estimated cost $2,500 to house the equipment to water the ground.
but it doesn't say anything about Doug's second option of Ford's mobile wash. We're
So
saying
this
no to
would
that.
be What Councilor
We're-
Murphy is
You don't need
supporting
Fords if you.
is that the city would do a one-off, 1 year, 1
Just
season
for this.
watering, and
Just
just
for
go
the-
forward to figure it out from there.
So that resolution is no, what's there is no good.
I mean, if this was the solution for this year, the trunk conversation could take place at a later time. that wouldn't be, that could be part of the more permanent solution. This would just be for 1 year for Public Works to water as we work towards perhaps next year.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. I think include this lock box in the resolution. Let's get it built and then have it ready, I would say. And the one-off, we can help out.
So, okay, so committee saying we'll get Ford's mobile washing for this year? No.
One-off,
The recommendation is-
Parks and Public Works would work together and assist in the volunteers, correct?
So the
No.
resolution would be that the office of the mayor and the Public Works Department cost share the construction of the box. And for the season of 2022, that the Public Works Department and the Parks and Recs Department waters that garden and manages that process. And then the box would be part of the longer term
Right,
solution.
so so, you guys can make a motion, vote on it. I'll definitely, just so as chair, say no. I want to stick with the policy, but I don't vote here, so, I'll make it, just make that statement. So,
I'll move it.
What did you say that again?
we're gonna break the policy for one off to do this.
No, I thought we weren't going with Public Works going on and going.
Well, we are now, that's what they're saying. They want to have Parks and Rec and Public Works figure some system out to water the flowers.
Well, once you have the box with the hose in it, why can't the volunteers continue on watering?
Well, that was my question. I thought that's what we were doing.
Why do we have Parks and Recreation or Parks and Public Works? We don't need them. Let's get over the hump as smoothly as possible. The hump being this year. And Parks and Recreation or whatever, and Public Works for the following. This is a one-off situation we're trying to deal with right now, right?
No, it's been happening for years.
No, this Queens thing. It hasn't been happening. Didn't it happen last year?
Every year.
Well, it did.
But, I mean, this year's a celebration, but the garden needs to be watered, the flowers need to be done every year.
But they weren't done, were they, in the past 2 years?
Not by us.
We have
That's right, that's what I
We have
mean.
given them a contribution.
Oh, these are financial contributions. Okay.
So now Doug is asking, can the Public Works and Parks and Rec, whatever, City Hall, whatever, water it,
Which is contrary to policy.
which is contrary to what our policy says.
No, what does the policy say? Who
We
can
don't go
water?
on personal property.
This is for city staff, this is for city staff, if I understand correctly, to go on and water the gardens. That's what's being asked of us.
With the trunk and the hose, right?
Whatever it takes.
Whatever.
Okay.
And the chair's saying it's contrary to policy, we shouldn't do that, we should do some other mechanism.
But what about the volunteers we have? Forget about the staff. Where are the volunteers coming in this?
The friends of the front.
McLaren in that bunch, eh? So can they take the hose and go and water the flowers?
It's been
Guess
identified
not.
by the Friends of the Farm that would be an issue, that they might not be able to water it on a go-forward basis.
But they're only doing, but just a minute, you see, you're mixing, one minute you're saying the Friends of the Farm, are they watering their gardens or are they watering the floral?
That's what they're responsible.
That's their only responsibility.
Yeah, they're
Just
only
a bed,
responsible.
just one bed.
Right.
It's the
So, and they don't have volunteers to do that?
That it was just raised yesterday that wasn't part of the agreement that I think was understood between Public Works and.
So the
Because
sta-
some
the
of the-
staff can't do it.
Some
and
of the-
volunteers won't do it. Water.
Yeah. So
So,
the proposal today, just the recommendation, and I thank you all for your time, and I don't want to take too much more, is that the Public Works Department for one season water it. And then, pardon me?
Already water.
They water that plot of garden
Yeah.
for one season.
Like they did in the past.
Like they did in the past.
Prior to 2018.
Exactly.
Who waters it for one season?
The Public Works Department.
before we made this
Yeah.
policy,
Yeah.
because this is what it's gonna open up again.
Right.
Because there are people going on to private lands.
We don't want to be going on private land. That's the reason why we created this policy. And if it's one-off for them, it's going to be one-off for somebody else next year, and so on and so on.
And I think the only reason that I was suggesting a one-off is just because it's in the context of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee that there would be an exception.
I know, but it's always going to be a one-off.
Of course, and I totally understand that, and I'm
Right?
approaching this.
I know.
So you can't have more than
Exactly as possible.
So, I think, so,
You can't have more than one-off, that's a one-off.
I think we should go ahead.
One-off.
build the box,
Right.
put the water in, security, whatever. But contrary to the mayor, I think we should approach Sean Casey. I really do, to see if he could come good for $1,600 to pay for the darn watering for this year because of the celebration.
I just spoke to Sean, he has not heard anything.
Oh, have you?
What is?
He has what?
I did
He has
crossing.
not spoke, he has said, I heard nothing about this.
Okay. So what's he
Okay.
saying?
So I just said, is there an opportunity for the federal government to participate in this project, given that at least for this year, it's the Queen's Jubilee? He
Yeah.
hasn't answered that part, but he said he knew nothing about this.
Yes, I did pass it. Look, this is not the first time it's been raised
Yeah.
with me, because the members on that group include some prominent
Right.
people that are
So-
very low.
So let's,
I'm just worried that we're gonna base a decision on lack of information.
yeah, I think,
But do you agree with installing?
yes, I think we
Councilor Yankow, do you agree with that?
And they do their own water.
install the box, so, right? This is our one-off. This really is our one-off. The
I do
Public
agree with
Works is,
installing the box.
right.
But I also then agree that if this is something we're willing to do for this organization and this, there's going to be opportunities that we need to be flexible and open to other groups that are also keeping the city beautiful.
And so should we.
Yeah, so we can't say, we can't say no, probably that.
But we can't do the work.
But that
Like,
could
you know what I
be
mean?
the grant process. So,
Yeah, that's- yeah.
It's the grant process to do that.
Like, we are reaching it by putting the box in, right? That's the work we're doing here today, is we're saying, look, we understand you've got a flower water issue. There's water there, but it's been abused, so tell you what, when we talk to the people, we're gonna build the box, we're gonna give you
So
security.
where were they getting the water before? Were they just bringing in buckets?
They must, whatever.
No, they had the recreation truck go and do it. See, this
But
is
not since-
before MGA.
Not before 2/18, this is before 2/18.
MGA,
Well,
and
what
then
did they do
MGA
last-
said you can't do
What
that.
did they do last summer?
The ball.
They did.
The plants weren't watered.
Yeah.
They weren't water.
They
Oh.
were
Depended on nature.
That was the issue and why they wanted to.
I just don't understand.
And who planted these plants?
They did.
They did, the
Volunteers.
So the volunteers went in and planted them?
Yes.
But then the volunteers weren't able to go in and water them because there was no real water.
There was no water
Unless they were gonna
access.
bring buckets and thermoses
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
So, and what did they do the year before that?
Same thing.
So it's the same thing.
Some years they didn't.
Since 18, they've been doing that.
Yeah, 2020, they didn't do it because of
No.
COVID-19.
And so, whose volunteers are these? Are these just really awesome Charlottetown people that just love?
Check their
making it so
website,
beautiful?
Friends of the Farm.
Friends of the-
Google.
Okay,
they're
so
friends of the
They're friends of the farm, gotcha. So, but the farm doesn't have any money to help them with it.
Evidently, no.
How much would the water box cost? I can't believe we're having this.
2,500.
2,500. So it's not a $1,600 ask, it's 2,500.
We're doing 25, and they were wanting for this year, do another 1,600 besides,
It's 1,600.
to pay for someone to water,
To bring in
Oh, I
Ford's
see.
water.
What do we need Fords for if there's a water box?
because they don't have volunteers to water, they don't wanna water
They
themselves.
know that.
So
They
Doug
don't
wants to
have to use
clarify
all
for you.
those.
Doug wants to clarify.
So my apologies. So apologies for the confusion. So Friends of the Farm before 2018, it was watered by the city.
That's right.
This was halted in 2019 because it's contrary to city policy. The plants were planted in 2019 to 2020 and 2021, I believe.
Not 2020, I think they didn't do
They
it.
didn't do anything.
Culvert,
Those
whatever.
plants died because there was no available water. So the solution that was put forward by the Public Works Department was to build a trunk, a metal trunk, that would have a hose in it that would allow the volunteers to water the crown garden themselves. That is the solution that is being recommended to the Public Works Committee today.
Yes.
And that would be the construction of this metal trunk would be cost shared between the Office of the Mayor and the Public Works Department, 50-50, for the approximate cost of $2,500. Separately from this conversation, the Friends of the Farm, the volunteer organization, had, without knowing this conversation about the trunk, gone and gotten a quote from Ford Mobile Washing that for someone to come with a water truck and water it 2 times a week, it would cost them $1,600. That's irrespective of this trunk being constructed. So that cost was beyond the abilities of the volunteer organization to pay. So today, the original resolution or staff report rather was to build this trunk that would permit them with access to water it themselves, so they wouldn't need to hire Ford to wash it.
Right.
So how are they gonna get the water down from that now? Don't they still need, how are they gonna get, if we install a $2,500 water truck, who's going, are the volunteers then willing to come in and water plants?
They're not able to, as far as I
Okay,
understand.
so they still need more money than the 2,500.
Yes, and that's where the temporary solution that I was proposing was that the city do an exception for 1 season. And then going forward, the office of the mayor would be able to provide additional funds for them to hire someone to water it.
But
But that would be a next year's budgetary.
Right,
So
and what
why
about
don't
the other-
Friends of the family, Friends of the Farm, apply for a summer grant and get a summer student? What a great job for a summer student, either through Sean Casey's office or through the Jobs for Youth from the province. Or I think, yeah, or,
That's the problem, then our staff can't go on to their property.
well, that's what I mean.
That's
It's
let them
not our
hire
staff.
their
I don't
own.
mean it's our staff, I mean, if they have an organization, unless they're just a volunteer organization, then they probably aren't allowed to apply. But that would be a solution. What a great job for a summer student who's maybe studying agricultural studies or whatever to actually maintain these gardens. I just think we need more of a long-term, and I love the idea of coming up with a solution, but I am concerned about the city going on to
Yeah, I don't
public
like that.
or onto non-city property, although I know there's examples that we've done it before.
And again, if.
Victoria Road, who owns the flowers?
Public right of way, Your Worship.
Public right.
But
That's a public right of way, that's
private
different.
land borders onto
Face of the
it.
building.
And not only that, we have the flower bed which is beautiful, at the foot of Grafton and Riverside Drive, that's owned by CADC. Like, we're talking about
Yeah, but
beautification of
we're-
the city.
But that's a public entity.
What I'm suggesting, Mr. Chair, is that we have a proposal, we install the box, and then we work out the details with the Friends of the Farm.
Friends of the Farm, take care.
That's what
Is there an organizing committee for this event,
No.
other than Friends of the Farm? Just like, is it the Queen's coming? Is there a Queen's coming committee?
I don't think the Queen's gonna.
Can you rephrase your question? Sorry, I'm not.
We're looking for people to water flowers early in the morning and at dusk, right? So we want somebody to open up this truck and run down with a hose, give it a good dousing, and do that twice a day. Is there any people, like in this organization that's
So,
sponsoring the Queen's?
Okay.
That's their
We
issue.
can have that conversation with them.
To be fair, that's their issue. All should be asked for today is to install the trunk, period. The operational piece remains with them. at this
Okay,
time.
moved. I'll do
and
the water.
we're not doing the water, we're gonna provide the water.
Volunteers.
So what
Okay.
we're doing at this stage is we're recommending to council
What's
that
that?
we install a box.
Right,
At the cost of approximately
$2,500.
$2,500, that's cost shared between the mayor's office and the public works. And once the box is there, then that's as far as we're going
That's-
at this stage, unless the volunteers perhaps come up with another proposal. Or maybe that's when Mr. Casey's office
Well,
maybe will do something.
if Doug and the mayor permits, maybe a letter coming from the city of Charlottetown to Sean Casey saying, these folks could use your help.
And so the $2,500 box, that's the cost, who's paying the water bill? Where's
The federal
that
government.
water bill?
That's
The
covered.
Friends have already said that they would still allow
They-
water to be used from their property
Yeah.
to water the
Who
garden.
said they would?
Federal government.
So the federal government's paying the water bill?
Yes, the
Or do
caretaker.
they get a grant in lieu of water?
So
Who cares, it's not our problem.
what we could suggest is a formal letter to come from the Friends of the Farm.
Right.
To the NP, because.
That's even a better idea.
Notified, we told them,
Yeah.
didn't hear about it, but I know in Crossing in the past, this has been brought up. all I want to do is that we forward a letter, that Sharon and her group forward a letter that the MP for Charlottetown, District of Charlottetown, may look at some possible funding opportunities to assist this initiative. And Mr.
Chair.
Chair, can I get a copy of that policy? Can you get that email to us on where we're not allowed to?
Yep.
And when that was formulated? or when that-
2019, I believe.
When?
2019, it says.
I don't know who's gonna carry the box on the property every year, or nobody's carrying the box. I mean, if
Okay.
our taxi drivers.
So, motion's on the floor, moved by Mr. Mayor, seconded by Councilor Duffy. All those in favor?
Of it moving on to council.
Moving on to council,
Can
which
you
is what we
just-
do.
Can we just say again what we're moving on to council so we're pretty clear?
Mr. Kelly or Doug can read it again.
Yeah,
Just to install the box and then provide the opportunity for the Friends to use the facilities.
and the federal government pays the water bill.
Nothing to do with us, we can't tell them what to do.
Yeah, but that,
Confirm that.
Scott said that will come from their side.
We're using their water.
Yeah, we're using the water, connecting to the water meter.
From Ravenhouse. I think it's coming.
Raven, yeah,
Or
right.
Raven.
Okay, all those in favor?
Then it moves to council, sure.
Anybody against?
Thank you,
No.
Doug.
That was fun.
That was great.
Thanks, Doug.
Communication, thanks
Thank you
Doug.
very much.
Cool, so let's move very quickly here. Let's go to tenders, mechanical street sweeper. Mr. Adams.
Yes, so one tender for a new mechanical sweeper to replace our smaller unit, which focuses primarily downtown and narrow streets, just for maneuverability. And when we received 3 bids, we rated them based on a scoring system. As you can see, there's scores on the back side. And the high score of salvage equipment, and we now have $299,950 plus applicable taxes is what we are recommending.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. Anybody got questions, concerns?
No, I'll move it.
Moved by Councilor Duffy.
I just have a question.
Okay. Perhaps we'll move it and then you can ask questions.
Sure.
Okay, I need a seconder.
She's gonna move it.
You'll second it?
Well, I don't want to second until I ask the question.
No.
Sure, I'll second it,
Yeah.
the question.
Okay, second it, and then before we vote?
Yeah, just want to make sure that was money already approved in
It's in
the
the
budget.
Yep.
And it's no higher or
No.
whatever. Okay,
No, anytime that happens, we will indicate it right in the resolution if we
Perfect.
require an increase in capital.
Gotcha. okay.
Okay, and Scott, for future years' budgets, street sweepers, I mean, it'd be nice to see them and us move out a little more with street sweepers throughout the city. I know there's a schedule, but it only happens, I can count in one hand how many times I've seen a street sweeper or 2 over the whole summer. As we build sidewalks, as we build
Yeah.
multi-purpose paths, so it's fronting to get ahead of down the road. We probably could use more of them, right?
As you get more curve, anything that's
Yeah,
preventing the
getting
dust
curves.
from getting off into like the
Yeah.
grass and disappearing, then yes, we
Yeah.
try to branch out
Yeah.
and go further and clean that up, because once you get curb line, that means you have.
Yeah, then you got
You have
buildup.
catch basins and storm
Yeah.
lines, and you don't want that sediment in there,
Good.
because that causes great clogs.
Okay.
So,
Good, thank you very much. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. We have enough, yeah. Okay, all those against? No, good. Okay, second one is the wheel loader with attachments.
yes, we went out for bids, we have 3 submissions, we're recommending the submission from Foremont Limited, and we have $317,000 plus all applicable taxes.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? If not, we'll need a mover in a second. Moved by Councilor Duffy, seconded by Councilor Yankoff. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
This next one's an annual
Yep.
thing, we go through, request for quotes every 2 years for backhoe and truck hire. That's for helping us reset driveway culverts in various areas of the city. The low bid of being McDonald for $82 per hour, that includes machinery and staff. We're recommending that be accepted.
Okay. Motion? Moved by Duffy, Councilor Yankoff seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And the last is, which one was it? Oh, no, two more. Short Street Extension Project.
So this is the project, I think you're all aware of, to connect Angus with Terra Heights.
Right.
As a result of the issue, or St.
From the
Peter's
roundabout.
construction last year. So this did not go to tender as the provincial government negotiated on our behalf with Island Postal to retain their unit prices from one of last year's St. Peter's Road contracts they had with them. There are a couple increases in the price, and the reason is when they negotiated that, they had assumed that the work was going to take place last year, so all the equipment would have been on site. So we have to pay a fee for mobilizing and demobilizing all their equipment to and from site, which is trucking costs and all that stuff. We would also have to pay for testing services and site layout, which those are two costs the province typically takes on and does themselves with in-house staff. We don't have that capability, so we get the contractor to do those. So those are two small increases to the pricing that we had to accept, but the rest are the unit prices from the provincial government contract that they went tender for last year.
Okay. Everybody okay? Questions, concerns? Okay, if not, a motion moved by Councilor Yankoff, seconded by Councilor Duffy. All those in favor? Thank you. And the Eastern Gateway Phase 1, Scott?
Yeah, so this one, as we talked about before, the scope really, I should say the drainage area, or the catchment area has changed, or it's much larger than we ever anticipated. So I am just going to, apologies, bring up this email just showing that true drainage area. Just so that, so as you can see, this is all color coded and it's divided into zones. And what each zone represents is a catchment area. So any of the rainfall that kind of falls into these zones or gets into the pipes in these zones, this is roughly that area or the entire area where everything's draining into. So for instance, where we're talking about the Eastern Gateway project, that zone extends all the way to the university and follows this path roughly down to the waterfront. And that's because, so when we did the scope of work, we said focus on what's around here because we made some assumptions that we did have enough data that we could share that they could create a model, which we definitely do not have enough data that we need. So what they literally have to do is physically go out and pop every catch basin cover, look in it, then take a look at pipe sizes and the elevation.
All right.
And they got to do that with every single catch basin in this area, or practically every single catch basin in this area, so that they can create a network of pipes so that they know where the water's coming and going and how it snakes down to the waterfront. So it's a lot of man hours or labor hours. It takes about, they assume about 12 to 15 minutes per catch basin to take all the data, pictures, everything, and collect all the information. So they have given us a price to do that work and to create that model of $116,365. While it sounds like a lot, there are a lot of catch basins in this area that drain down to this area of the city. And without capturing this data, we would just be guessing at the size of storage capacity, the size of piping that we would need downstream. And because if you're guessing, essentially what's going to happen is you still guess wrong and be undersized and have some stormwater issues and spend all this money making error. Or you can have a pipe that's so oversized that you're paying, $3-4 million more than what you should have paid for this project. We may not have as big of an issue as we think we have if we can do something to control the water upstream. And one of the options that we will be looking at is they're behind the the market. There's already a pond back there, a bit of a marshy area. If there's a lot of waters coming from down up that area all the way down, maybe we can increase the retention area in that marsh to help with downstream capacity. And by doing something like that is a very small cost, but has a huge impact on downstream flows. So that's why they have to, you know, understand where all this water's coming from and how much is coming down there. And the only way to do that is to pop all the cover, collect that data, and to create a true model with it.
Okay. It's fairly complicated, I mean, because,
It is.
you
It's
know,
substantial work.
you take a step over, like 2 streets over, and then you've got the Frank Macaulay Park and the water, it takes off.
Yeah.
But it's up higher on the other side, more
Yeah.
east, I guess you'd say.
And one thing with this map too, this is
Yeah.
solely based on LiDAR, so we're just looking at the elevation of the surface from an airport.
From the
right?
surface water, okay.
So, but what we don't know is, you know, this street here and this street here, just because of how they were designed and built, all that water could actually still be flowing into our zone, and we have no clue.
Yeah.
So again, there could be a lot of tributaries that are flowing into it that we don't know, or there could be stormwater flowing out that we don't know of either. And again, it's all, if you don't go through this exercise, you'll be guessing on it, and you're gonna be, it's not gonna be,
Yeah.
I'm not confident doing that.
Yeah, and I think, Scott, just to be in relationship with this, we also did a study, I believe, on the Macaulay Park area and where the water was coming into that park.
Correct, yeah.
Right? That was done a few years ago, so we can kind of relate with that, and when you get this one, we can kind of make sure that we're not,
Well, exactly,
Yeah.
and once you get this data, we own it forever, of course, right? So we will keep that model, and then you see all these zones, we can over time, with our own staff, and they have said that they will help train our staff as well. Like, we can send staff out with them, they'll train them how to properly, what information to collect to build that database, so that whenever, you know, say we need to create
you need
this model
something
here.
separated up or something, yeah.
Yeah, we need to create that model here.
Okay.
Here's all the data we've already collected. Please develop the model
Okay.
for us. Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
okay. Eastern Gateway, yeah, Councilor Yanko.
I didn't see were there any other companies quote on this?
No, and so that's why it's when Peter and I sat down about we know there's time. So if we were to, as Peter mentioned, if we went up to tender, and you know we're another consultant successful, so we're looking at 4 to 8 months or 4 to 8 weeks before we can get the documents out, tender close, and award. Now we're in the thick of summer, and the concern is we're in the thick of summer. Consultants are, they currently have us slotted into their schedule to do that work if we award it to them. But another consultant may not have a slot in their schedule, and they may say, well, you know what, we're going to do it later.
It's not going to get done this year.
There's potential that it could be delayed, and that's
I don't wanna
the
see
biggest
that.
concern. If we get into delays, then we risk not getting proper budget numbers for next year for Eastern Gateway, and we made the commitment, well, we have federal funding for Eastern Gateway, and we made the commitment to work in tandem with the province for that. We do all our work while the province does their work at the bridge. So risk to doing this data capturing can delay us, and we risk not meeting our deadlines.
Okay.
I see that in the report. Peter, is there any risk that we're not following process?
The normal process is, as I advised, that as the amount, it should be going to tender. There are special circumstances if the committee and or council felt the need to go forward with a sole approach. Scott's stuck in a rock and a hard place here. He's trying to get it worked out. He's also mindful of the cost over the policy. If you were to area, you probably err on the side of going to Denver, but Scott's just taking his perspective that he doesn't want this to qualify.
Right.
It would be probably the best approach to go through the process in terms of go over to tender. Again, Scott's providing you with an alternative. We want to make sure we meet our deadlines to take this keep the rock and
So let's back up the train a little bit. So the EXP have already been awarded,
Correct.
the infrastructure,
They're doing the design of the sizing of the infrastructure,
Right.
the road network, all that as well, yes.
right, and then we discovered that
we need to broaden our scope of work
And that's
for
what
that
this is,
project.
and that's what this is for.
That's what this is for, that's correct.
So would the odds be that another company would have to go back to the starting point? Would it be a bigger project than what
They would
they?
have the documents
Yeah.
secured today, correct?
Yeah, they would essentially, they would have to, it's not a starting point, all we would go out for services is data collection and modeling, stormwater modeling is what we would go out to tender for. And we would own that data and then we would provide it to our consultant to use. Again, like I say, the concerns are just timelines, truly timelines. If we get delayed on this, if we don't get the model back until the winter, sometime in late, mid to late winter, we're already behind the eight ball. We don't have anything designed, so we don't have a budget. Our capital budget will already have been passed that time. There's quite a trickle effect going on. And it is a challenging process. It's not an easy decision. And Peter and I talked about it at great length the other day about it.
So it's not like we handpicked someone out of the blue. We're just saying that because this company's already been involved with the project and we have to widen the scope.
That's correct.
So there's two other parts of it. One is we gotta stay in line with the province's work on the roundabout.
Correct.
And we also got residential properties with water in their basements.
That's correct.
So do you know when the province is going to start this project? Is it ever qualified date?
All we know is they are starting in 2023. Likely because of the size of it, it will be tendered in March, April of 2023, which is typical of their major capital work. And I would expect to see it start in June, July that summer.
Okay, good question. The answer's there. What do we want to do?
For me, because we don't have a clear, concise exception policy, I know this will go on to council regardless. I am not comfortable supporting it.
You're what? Not comfortable?
After
Not
hearing
comfortable.
Peter's
She wants to go to full tender.
discussion on it, and I understand Scott's conundrum, but as Peter said, if we were actually following the proper process, it would have to go into tender. So
Although there is a clause that would allow for sole sourcing.
Yes.
If there was reason to do so, so Scott feels that
That
there
there's
is
reason.
reason to do so.
Yeah.
And because he wants to make sure we meet those deadlines, so he is following policy, so there's no,
Of course.
not following policy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the understanding, should we sole source in this case, or should we go back to the?
Has this been filtered through finance yet?
No, it's here.
It's here.
because
Well, then,
process-
okay, well, let's just move forward with it, as long as finance gets to see this, and that gets outlined.
So what did you want to do, Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
So, Mr. Chair, could I just follow up what Councilor
yeah.
Minkoff said?
So we have EXP,
Yeah, no, I know.
you know what's going on, so we have to
What I'm saying
widen.
is that I think it should go to open tender. That's what I said.
Right.
Is that what I heard?
That's
Yeah, I
right,
agree with
yeah.
you. So you want to put a motion on the floor?
Well, no other motion, I guess there was a resolution.
No, we're just, there's a resolution here to go with, but,
You have to go with the motion in the term, so if that's what you want to do, then that's the motion that you have to go for.
I want to go to open tender, so I'll ask to reject this and go to open tender.
okay. So your understanding of that we could fall behind in the project, and that the people of Park Street and Beach Street, when the water comes in, I can defer them to you?
I think we'll
Because
just
this-
to be.
because that's what we're
on the
going.
engineering side of this, I think we can turn this around quickly by going into tender very quickly. Again, it's what was discussed here, and I think I read the background. I'm fine, I think we can do it.
It's a lot of labor hours, that's why it's not.
Yeah, man, that's cool, whatever you want. Okay, so I'll need a motion to, whatever,
Reject, hold.
moved by Mayor Brown,
Yeah, I'll second it.
seconded by Councilor King.
Sorry, it's not to be, Jeff, just to be clear, the mayor is moving that this be sent back to the tender, so it won't go ahead, we'll just go through due process.
Yeah,
It's
we'll
got
go
to
back.
go to tender.
But
It doesn't need a
it's
motion.
not our, but it still has to go to council first.
Let's go to finance.
It doesn't, folks. If we want to
This
follow the
committee
process.
doesn't make decisions, we make recommendations to council.
But folks are good, if it's not moving with a sole source, then it's going to go back and you'll follow the process, which is tender, so it doesn't require anything else from you folks today.
But council has to make the final decision. That's
Just
all,
a
I'm not
minute.
making the decision.
No, no, all we're,
But we
like,
just made that decision to say, keep the standard to go to tender on, right? That's the motion.
like, we can make we could make a recommendation to this to go forward, and it could go to finance, and they'll, because they monitor how we spend and tender, they could say, no, you have to go to full tender.
Well, my motion would be more so to say, my motion is to say that this does not move forward to finance.
Yeah, the staff has recommended, yes, go.
Yes.
And now council goes to committee, and we're saying, no, no, no.
Well,
Right,
process.
and then it has to go into council, doesn't it?
No.
No, just back to
No,
square
no.
one, go back and.
You don't have a
start
final
to-
recommendation going to council.
If the council, sorry, if this committee feels it's best to go to tender, then you're giving instruction to the manager, follow process, go to tender.
Oh,
Yeah.
But since when did committees become, we're just recommendations?
Yeah,
We don't
well,
make
we're not,
decisions as council.
and we're not recommending this.
Yeah, but.
So then if
council still
Scott
has to make
comes
the
back-
final decision. I'm so confused because.
No,
we're
it's
told
pretty-
Time and time again, that council makes the final decision.
Right, but we're not ready to give council the opportunity to vote. We've decided that, no, we want to follow full process and go back and get the manager to go to tender.
That's the
So,
power of committees.
so then he will come, then he'll go to tender, come back again, and then we'll say, yeah, we're happy now, send her off, let's go. And then it goes to finance, make sure, the second guess his work, and then it goes to council. And then council makes the decision.
There's 3 intersections with a police officer at every intersection. Come on, come on, come on. Whoa.
So,
Yeah. go
yeah.
back.
Scott, what time frame would you need to go to tender?
Sorry, pardon me?
What time frame?
Would you need to go to tender?
So to get a tender ready, right now, once we get tenders ready, we're looking at a week, get it ready on our side. When it gets to finance, everything's been taking at least 1-2 weeks to get out, so we're at a minimum 3 weeks out. Then a minimum 2 weeks we have public advertise for 2 weeks, so now we're 5 weeks out. And then whenever the next committee, or we would typically, if we can make a shorter,
Would we have a special meeting or?
yeah,
Yeah,
depends
like we
on
would-
when council meeting happens.
I would,
So
yeah,
we're looking at probably
4 weeks.
at least 6 weeks, if not longer, to get this awarded. So now we're definitely into June. So none of this work would happen before July at the earliest.
okay. I would appreciate anything we could do, since affects my ward. I would appreciate the fastest we can go possible. The folks have been, they've been waiting for this for a long time. So, anyway, okay, so, where are we at? We have a motion on the floor to reject, and Scott will go back, not to reject, but to go back
And
to,
maybe, I know,
Yeah.
Scott, how busy you all are. If you
Yeah, no,
could just
process
go
is
as quick
process.
as possible,
Yep.
so that.
process
as
is
respect to
process.
the
Like I say,
community.
we can turn it around roughly in a week, and then once it goes to finance,
We'll
it's
help-
it's up to
We'll help
them.
it up through
Yeah,
finance as well.
okay,
Even with the XP coming back.
yeah, it could be, yeah. It should be,
Better
really.
price.
It should be.
Even if this was recommended to go to council, it wouldn't get there till May 9th.
There you go.
No, that's true, too.
Right.
But it's going to be later and later, yeah, it's going
It-
to, but anyway,
It won't
let's,
come to council until at least June.
yeah, okay.
Well,
So,
it can go in the end of May to 23rd if we have everything.
Especially-
we could have a special meeting. Okay, so, all those in favor? Okay, all those against? No? Good, Scott, you got some work to do. Okay, introduction of new business. So we had Penny Lane and Hawthorne Avenue.
So we can start with Penny Lane.
Penny Lane.
So I have spoken with the daughter of the property owners, and Jason Cody as well. I spoke to him this morning. This matter was brought up to our attention late 21, about, right now Penny Lane comes in and it dead ends right here. Kind of where you see that dashed line going across Penny Lane, and then this individual has a driveway off it up to their property, and then there's a farmland here, owned by the Grasses. The Grasses have indicated that they're willing to work with the city to offer land to install a cul-de-sac, a proper cul-de-sac for turning around. Is what's happening right now is, in order for this home to get garbage waste or plowing or anything. People are turning in the driveway and causing some damage. It's not an ideal situation. This road was built a number of years ago, and this would never happen today. We always make sure there's some cul-de-sacs at the end of it, so
Right.
so that a truck can turn around safely. So essentially, just wanted to bring this, give a bit of an update, because I know the mayor and Jason Cody has, Councilor Cody has met with the homeowner. It is on our radar, but I have spoken to the daughter of the homeowner. They're not in a huge hurry, they just want to be kept in the loop, which is great, and I did indicate right now we're quite busy. It's kind of something we're planning on working on a little bit later this summer, once we have a little downtime to kind of finalize plans
Okay.
for cul-de-sac, and so on and so forth.
So it's on the radar.
It's on the radar. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Bianco.
Question about it. So, right now, their driveway is being damaged by,
Correct.
and so what are we doing for them for the driveway?
Nothing. Because we only own up to that land.
Well,
So-
then, should the homeowners not be highly suggested they put a gate in or something to save the driveway, because
Well, no, it's
if I was-
this
if I was a
homeowner here,
homeowner,
not the
I would
gas.
be coming back.
Yeah.
You know, if I had a damaged driveway because the city vehicles and everything else couldn't turn around, I would be wanting somebody to pay for the damage.
It's not our vehicles, it's mostly,
Provincial.
the garbage.
Garbage trucks.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is.
But we are working with them
Yeah.
and it will get fixed up when we go to do
It'll all
the,
get fixed up.
yeah. Oh yeah, they're gonna get their driveway done.
Yeah.
Councilor Yankoff, Dr. Wendell Grass.
They're good people.
Dr.
Yeah.
Wendell Grass. Very respected man, looking, just is looking down the road, and if this is to be part of the plan for next year, or maybe this year, he would be much appreciated, along with, including Kenny Campbell, who lives in the city.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I know we're starting to get run late and Mr. Duffy has to go. Just before we go into close, there's just one more, and that is Hawthorne Avenue.
Oh, yes.
So,
So, yes, for
Scott, go ahead and you can give your
So
explanation.
Hawthorne right now, the request has come in from the homeowners about stop signs. Met with them last year, late summer,
Yeah.
I believe. And the thing with stop signs is what they're trying to fix, stop signs will not correct it, and we know that very clearly. There's Main Street, Spring Lane that has a similar issue. People do rolling stops or just gun it after the stop sign. So because it's part of the resurfacing program this year, recommendation that we're going to look at is raised crosswalks at both intersections. So raised crosswalk acts as kind of a speed hump. It's more gradual because the top is flat, so it's the width of a crosswalk. It's painted, and so people can safely cross from the sidewalk to the neighborhood side street. But it's designed so you can only go over 25K, 30K, and if not, you're gonna really feel it. You're gonna get some, you'll feel it, and it doesn't feel nice to go over them. That will, because of the spacing between the intersections, that combined with looking at reinstalling or putting a permanent median on St. Peter's Road, that will limit the access to Hawthorne Street. Between those two items, we think it's going to significantly improve quality of life for those residents on that street. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I remember Hawthorne Street, when we did install a median on St. Peter's Road to restrict left turners coming down that street, I think there's about a 40% drop in vehicles or something. It was quite significant. So those are two of the safety features that we're looking at, or featured to give us a bit of a road diet, I should call it, in this area. And so we're aiming for May 16th, week the 16th, to have another community meeting with these residents, just to hopefully share that data that we've collected to date, and our plans moving forward.
Okay, so, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
My question was, if you had a community meeting and if everyone in the community thought, okay, we actually think this is a good idea, when would that work potentially be able to take place?
When the streets resurface. So
Which is when?
as of right now, we don't have that schedule, right?
So
we
it's not this year.
Oh yeah, no. Hawthorne streets have to be resurfaced this summer.
So in the
Yep.
short term, could the stop signs go up in the short term while the plan is being done? Is that
You don't
such a
want to
thing?
put stop signs in for a month or two. It can cause confusion and chaos. Like, for an individual that's not typically coming down that neighborhood, they're just going, what happens is people just drive through as well, as happened, if they're not a permanent fixture for the whole time.
So, okay, so my problem, Scott,
But what
is,
we can do is we can look at temporary speed humps until we get the road resurfaced, if neighborhoods are okay with that.
yeah, my problem is that the residents, and I'm gonna say this out loud, they don't have much faith in the city of Charlotte right at the moment. They tried that, it did work when we had all the blocks in place.
Yep,
It didn't slow down the speeding,
no,
it did slow down the amount of traffic,
yep,
but the issue is speeding. So, then we tried the chicane, and that was a 4-day exercise of trying to get the snow cleared on the street, simply because it didn't work, we didn't have the right plow, various reasons. But anyway, you know, just so you know, I can't get a resident to speak to me. So when you have this meeting, you better be ready, because they're so upset, Scott. It ain't, it's like, I'm at the point where, you know, and you're going on guidelines of the transportation, but it's only a guideline, right? It's not law. So why are we being so hard to the resident when we don't even know if the St. Albert's Mall, for example, are they going to be even on board with your plan? Then if they're not, then we're back to the drawing board again.
At the end
And
of
the
the
residents
day,
still are not getting what they want.
shops in St. Albert's will have the same, if not better.
I know what they're gonna have. I know they're gonna have a
And
left-hand
at the
turn.
end- At the end of the day, we're.
Thanks, Mike.
Right away, they won't, there's no pace for them to make any of the changes, just because we put a feature, you know, we put a feature down.
Oh, I know.
Jail down there, and they have, you know, it's not far away. It's, you know, it's not gonna impact their access to the business in any direction.
But you officially here cannot speak for them, though. You have to have that meeting.
Yeah.
And my biggest fear is that, like, the mayor and my name right now isn't very popular on those streets. They've been asking for two stop signs at each of the two intersections, and they're sitting there scratching their head saying, what is the problem? Like, you've got stop signs all over the city, right? And Mitchell Treadle in Ward 3 or 4, whatever it's for, he's got them at every corner and every street in the whole ward. Right? So these people, like, the people of Parkdale have been around a long time. This isn't a new subdivision. These people know what's been going on.
I don't know, I was never part of the reviews of why the stop signs were there.
I know.
There could be sightline issues, there could be a number of issues as to why they were put there. But, you know, TAC has got 100%, it's not the law. However, when you have a document I circulated, 70 different documents that have researched the effectiveness of stop signs, saying that the issue that we have is not going to be corrected by a stop sign, it's hard to justify. And at the end of the day, if I have to go to court and defend the city on a matter at one of these intersections, and I get asked why was a stop sign in place, we want to be able to have all our ducks in a row, say we tried everything and nothing else worked, so we had to go with the stop sign. Whereas if we just throw up a stop sign and say, well, why didn't you follow the research? What, you know, what research tells us that stop signs aren't effective at stopping our issue.
Right. But at our meeting, the residents, you did tell them that we're gonna try something.
Yeah.
Okay, it didn't work. See what I'm saying? Now you know where I'm going.
Yeah,
It didn't work.
absolutely.
We
Yeah.
tried two things. We tried the
Yeah.
thing, we didn't communicate properly, we got in trouble.
Yeah.
Then we put in the chicane, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And by the way, both of those two stop sign areas, buses, which I didn't notice actually in all the commotion, is that there's buses stop at both of those intersections where we want stop sign. So maybe it is a good idea that we have stop signs at each of the four corners.
Well, the buses have stops, you know, they have forward flash, or they have
You know.
red lights, and they have stop traffic. That's pretty standard anywhere. Like, I have a street in my neighborhood where they stop at the corner, and there's no stop signs in all directions, and they won't stop for
Yeah.
buses as well. So again, it's just following process. It's nothing against the residents, nothing against you folks, elected officials.
Yeah.
It's following process, so that at the end of the day, we don't get ourselves in trouble. We
It's
want to
got-
make sure that we're putting in the proper
Process is taking too long.
process.
You're in
Take long
just a
time.
second,
Yeah.
you're in a political ring.
Mhm.
You can never forget that, right? We are in the customer service business. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for, right? The voters pay us, the voters say they want stop signs. and I'm gonna say to you right here in public, I agree with them. Like, we've tried, okay? We went down the road, we did what you thought was gonna work, it didn't work. I'm not saying that the design, but you're also telling me that, you know, you have to get a surveyor, so that plan at the front of the road isn't quite ready yet to even show anybody, and it's like, geez, God, how many times do you want me to go to these residents?
So can you also public the raised crosswalks that you're also looking at too as well?
Well, yeah, I did mention about that.
And-
About how the design would be impacted, you know, speed bump slash crosswalk.
Yeah, and essentially, yeah, they act as a speed bump for drivers, but they raise pedestrians up off the road as well. So it's safer to cross the road now, in terms of they have better visibility, and they're actually safer for folks like who use a wheelchair or any of those mobility devices, because now you're not dipping down to the sidewalk as it matches in with the sidewalk.
So in the short term, I know it can add confusion to stop signs and not, but when you have special circumstances, people put things like that in, and then there's just signage that says, new stop sign ahead. I'm just wondering as Terry, the council for the area, what do your residents want?
Mr. Chair, we did do that down Palm Street. Palm Street down by,
Yeah.
But those are also permanent stop signs.
we did do it on Goodwill Avenue, a number of stop signs. Again, I know Hawthorne, and it's a throwaway from Kensington Road, St. Peter's Road, vice versa. So they're asking for two streets, First Street and Second Street with
Yeah.
stop signs.
Yeah.
So, what street is the most needed, First or Second, for the stop sign?
Well, they both are.
I know.
Because,
But if we start with one,
Oh my goodness.
that's a tough one, because, you know, they get traffic both ways, right? The thing you gotta remember is they have the Civic Center at one end,
right?
and they got a mall on the other end, right? So there's, you know, so it's awful hard for me to tell you which street would get the most. I don't think, if you're going down that street, both intersections get hit at the same time. So it's, you know, I think if you're going to do one, you're best to do two.
So if I put a resolution on the floor to put two stop signs up on the corner of First and Hawthorne, and Second and Hawthorne.
I'll
Is that
second
legit?
it.
That's an operational matter though.
Oh, it's not
So
working.
with that, we want to check with legal on that, George. Now, again, and again, I'm not saying it's not possible.
I'm moving it.
saying That legally needs to be reviewed, because you don't want to put the council in line with those situations.
So I want to move that, Mr. Chair.
So, okay, moved
Moved.
and seconded, but by you, what was it? Okay?
Legal.
Okay, any other comments? I guess, you know, I just don't know how much longer we expect residents to be patient. Like, this has been ongoing, and this is a community, right? I mean, they've waited their time. Like, it's been an older community. There's former firefighters on the street. You know, they know there's younger families that moved in. They're terrified of the speed. The buses are, you know, they have the same problem. Cars are passing them, going by the buses too. So it's a street that takes all the same problems as everybody else. So I'm just telling you, from not as a chair, but as the ward person, you know, I don't want to go down that street to
So
campaign.
could we move and second it, that in the meantime, as
We will get a
Mr.
legal
Kelly
review done.
pointed out, he
Yeah.
could make sure that we're not stepping and going out of our lane in terms of operational before it moves on to council?
'Cause I know my-
It's a state issue, but I will have a view on
Yeah,
it. That's fine, you can recommend it to the state, by the time it gets to council, we'll have a report from it.
Yeah, because,
And that's okay to do? Okay.
Because
Mr.
I-
Chair, again, this, oh, sorry.
well, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Councilor.
Well, I just, you're trying to find a way to slow the traffic down. Trying to find a way to make it difficult. And the way to make it difficult is put obstacles up, and what kind of obstacle are we gonna put up to make it difficult for these clowns to put the pedal to the metal? And it's not, I think, maybe, you know, Philip, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, on Ambrose Street, they put, what do they call those flower boxes that they come out here halfway, and then 20 feet down the road, or 20 yards, there's another one comes from the right-hand side out, which causes the,
No cicadas.
It's a
What they
chicane,
call it?
yep.
Chicane.
It
What
creates
you
an
call the
incident.
chicane, the chicane that was on St. Peter's Road was more like a division of the highway.
Just a different style.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that slow them down until we got it
It's,
going?
again, when we tried the chicane before, what happened is the material that we were using, we thought it could work, but it was
Yeah.
just too large. Unfortunately, it wasn't the appropriate
Yeah.
unit to use as a test subject.
Yeah,
If we were to properly design and put in with proper curb, 100% it could work and it would slow traffic down. They work quite well. They essentially limit to one vehicle coming through, kind of have
Yes,
you yield
yes.
to the oncoming vehicle,
So-
and it does work, yeah.
And just a quick point of order.
I've got to run, I was.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike, I appreciate you staying.
Sorry, see you later.
Just a quick point of order. It is not appropriate to refer to residents of Charlottetown or drivers as clowns. So I just think that's very inappropriate language. So I'm just-
Well, he meant, you know,
I think we need to
he
be
would
very
just-
much more respectful
Yeah.
with the language we use.
More responsible drivers is probably what you should be saying. But anyway, I think what he's referring to too is there's a lot of young folks that use that street going to the rinks and they're going a little too fast. So I think that's probably what he was referring to.
So, Mr. Chair, I was just gonna say that, you know, the whole issue is dealt with. I think that
yeah,
the
let's,
owners of St. Everard's, body new owners of the live at St. Peter's Road. And you know what, Scott, this is no disrespect to your profession.
And
Engineer.
I take no offense to it.
And you wear the ring with, I know, the ring with pride, just like other engineers I know, but it's no disrespect. I think we have a political issue, and we have a regulatory issue, and TAC to me is the Tourism Association, Transportation Association of Canada. Their responsibility is just to look at providing guidance. They're not a regulatory body.
And at the end of
so
the
I
day,
appreciate
really,
that.
it's about risk. And, you know, if a resolution is approved, allowed to go for it, and that's the direction council goes, then that shows that the city understands the risk and has accepted the risk. You know?
That's right.
Whereas if I put it up, I have to be the one to be
Correct.
able to say, I understand the risk, I accept the risk because of A, B, and C. So, and that's all it is. So there's no offense at all, none taken. And you guys, you folks are definitely doing your job and listening to residents and going back for them. And it's great to see and to hear. So nothing, no.
so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna vote on the motion, and then, but in the meantime, we're gonna look at legal, and
Get the review.
then,
Therefore, when it goes to council, council will have, you know, the Public Works has recommended
Yeah.
stop signs. However, since that recommendation, legal is strongly suggesting not, or
Yeah.
blah, 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 whatever that might be, so that council has all the information
Yep.
to make this.
that makes sense.
So just
Okay.
on
Yes,
point
sorry.
of clarification, point of information, did we forward Goodwill Avenue stop sign, Palm Street stop sign to council? Why does it, why does it?
That's not normal operation, and the staff do their analysis, your worship, and then they come up, if they meet the standards or the criteria.
So,
This is
So
So
a-
those
did you-
ones must have met the standards.
did you also look at the one on Ambrose and McGill Avenue yet? We were studying that.
Is that?
It was up, and then we took it down.
I have to confirm, I think that was the one with the issue with folks parking on the street.
That's no longer an issue.
Yeah, I think that was the one, yes, that's been documented and reviewed and studied, yes.
So leave it without a stop sign?
Yeah. I believe so. What is there now, like, I don't know the file, but what is there now would have been the final decision based on.
If you get some time, could I get that documentation?
We'll have to dig it out. yeah.
No rush.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then just for a point of clarification.
We need to go.
So those ones didn't have to go to council for other reasons, why?
You know, they follow due process of the engineers do their analysis based upon the guidelines from TAC. After their analysis, they feel it met the criteria and they were installed. In this case, it's felt that it does meet the criteria, and that's why they're not installed. So I'm hearing that the mayor and committee wishes to go to council for them to direct staff to put in for public safety and for the comments of the chair. We just want to make sure that if that's the case, then we understand the legal implications of doing something. That's all. So some is process oriented and some is politically, as the chair said, politically oriented and needs to go through a more intense
So the one question I've had with that, Peter, if you don't mind me, but is, so the process that staff did on Admiral Street, was it because there was cars speeding? Was that not be the complaint?
So would you guys?
Which one was that? Sorry.
Well, the latest, which one did you just mention?
Goodwill Avenue.
Goodwill Avenue, sorry.
Goodwill Avenue, New York, and Pownell and Richmond.
Right,
And
so-
so Pownell Richmond was sightline issues because of all the street parking. It was extremely difficult for folks coming out of Richmond to see around parked vehicles. You have to inch out. That is an automatic trigger for a four-way stop because it's very dangerous for traffic. Yeah, for traffic. So again, there's a number of criteria what we look at. We look at, we do a site visit, we look at sight lines, can you see both directions? Absolutely. If you can see really well both directions, or so many feet that you're supposed to be able to see, then if you can't, then that's an automatic trigger for an all-way stop, we call it. So there are a number of triggers that we look at in the requirements. Number of vehicles, the balance of traffic, there's so little traffic coming out of the side streets.
Yeah.
And that's
Well, see, the residents will disagree with you,
that's what the numbers are saying.
right?
So
The Dresden Court,
Yep.
the Dresden Court area,
Yep.
and a lot of pedestrians, right? that
Well,
walk.
again, it may
right?
seem like a lot of pedestrians to the very immediate residents, but overall, when you stretch it out over a day and how they all filter in and filter out, it's very little at the end of the day. And again, I had one an employee look at these things, and he has studied them and looked at the option. And I'll have to get his file out and see exactly how his review went through.
But, Yeah, and just to add to
Yeah.
that, the residents say one child is one too many getting hit. Right? It's
Absolutely.
not about how
That's
many's
always
going,
concern.
it's not about how many's going to, but Dresden Court heads to the Macaulay Park. That's what because we took the park away from Belmont Street.
And
So
that's,
there's a flow of kids and bicycles and that go up the Second Street down and toward my place and into the park. So that's what they're seeing, right?
100%, yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And that's why they're concerned.
There's a lot of children in that.
So, and then, which I didn't realize is that the bus uses, there's two bus stops both at those two intersections. Like one time we had to walk a mile, but now everyone gets dropped off. So anyway, so we have a motion on the floor, all those in favor? 1, 2, and Mike had to leave. Okay, so
Mike did have his hand up prior. to-
he's in favor, but he had to go, he's got an appointment at 2 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate everybody's comments. So only one other thing, Scott, before we go into closed, is the Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities. So I got a call today from Linda Clark,
Okay.
or an email, sorry, wanting to know why we're not getting together. So I said I'm gonna push it today for Scott to look on his
I
calendar.
will find out what's going on.
Yeah, and Allison Faithful, who was one of the members, just got out of knee surgery, so he's ready to come back. Let's get that back on,
Absolutely.
and I
think
believe,
the delay was, or why we haven't been meeting, is because we were.
well, some of it was the virtual.
Yes, it's
problem.
hard for some of them
Yeah.
virtually, yes. So
yeah.
I'll follow up.
My only
Yeah.
other question with that is it possible for us to find a staff member from City Hall to, they don't necessarily have to come all the time, but, there's a disconnect, right, between Public Works Building and what happens here. There's no staff presence of any kind, and really, as chair, it doesn't mean I have to go to every board.
There's no staff person at that?
No.
I thought that's in terms of reference, there has to be a staff
No,
person.
we have been assigning, it was Rebecca.
Well, we had Rebecca, but Rebecca is doing about 4 jobs there right
So
now.
the lady doing that job might.
Yeah, she would, it's under her role, she'll come and do that, yeah. So there
Yeah.
is an individual assigned to
Yeah.
it, yeah.
It just, simple things like, it comes
Yeah.
down on top of me to make sure that the paperwork gets signed and gets sent to
Yeah.
finance. Like, I don't know how many other chairs are doing that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why it's not making it, so I'll definitely talk to them. I wasn't aware that it wasn't me, like,
Yeah,
if they don't, like, if that individual is assigned to not let me know that there is stuff for us to review,
Yeah.
I don't go searching for it, just,
yeah.
we have
Yeah.
other things to worry about.
And I know you've
I'll
sent-
make sure that they're aware that
Yeah.
any business arising
Yeah.
from those minutes or in
Yeah.
discussion, we
Yeah.
make sure
And-
we're clearly aware of them.
Yeah, and one suggestion is that Rebecca, I know, like, she's wearing multiple hats,
Yeah.
but, even if maybe one of the 4 supervisors could make it to the meeting. You know what I mean? Some type of presence from the city.
We have an support staff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
There is
Okay.
one there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you, good enough. So, we need a motion to move into close, as per section 119, 1E subsection E of the, moved by Mayor, seconded by Councilor